You know that little thrill you get when you hear a story about secret meetings, hidden agendas, that feeling that there's something else going on just beneath the surface? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome to this deep dive. It's crafted for you, someone who wants to really get into a topic, get the key info, but without getting lost in the weeds. And you've sent over some really compelling sources. Our mission basically is to explore this world of alleged secret societies. We're talking ancient orders, modern power brokers, the whole range. And we want to pull out the most fascinating, the most significant insights for you.
Yeah, looking at these sources, what really jumps out is just the sheer spectrum of groups we're looking at.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You've got, historical groups with pretty clear origins, documented stuff. But then you've got these other much more elusive entities where, frankly, their very existence is up for debate.
Mhm.
Some are really local, specific goals, others. Supposedly global networks, maybe pulling strings behind nations.
Exactly. The Freemasons. They have this long public history, right? But people always suspect they've had this hidden influence. You hear about revolutions, political shifts, even local stuff. Then there's Skull and Bone, super exclusive, operating out of that mysterious tomb at Yale. And of course, the Illuminati. You can't talk about this stuff without mentioning them, right? The ultimate shadowy power and so many theories. But that's really just scratching the surface. We'll also get into the Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, even groups like the Black Hand, who, undeniably shaped the 20th century. We know you might be coming to this with different levels of background knowledge, so we promise to keep it clean. No overwhelming jargon. We just want to help connect the dots, make sense of this really fascinating, sometimes confusing landscape. Okay, so let's start with a big one most people have heard of, the Freemasons.
Right. So the picture you get from the sources is kind of twofold. On one hand, a very visible group, charity work, community stuff, very public facing. But then running alongside that are these persistent claims of, well, significant hidden influence. The suggestion is that their lodges weren't just like social clubs,
Mhm.
but actual hubs of power, maybe driving big historical events, political changes.
It's pretty wild to think about, isn't it? The
Hmm.
idea that so many of the U.S. founding fathers, Washington, Franklin, guys like that, were all Masons, part of the same club. And the symbolism, your sources really hammer this point. Masonic symbols supposedly all over U.S. money, government buildings, even city layouts. That all-seeing eye on the dollar bill is the classic example, right? What was the thinking there? Why so visible?
Well, the rituals themselves are probably key to understanding the mystique. The lambskin aprons, these ceremonies about building a spiritual temple, which, as your sources point out, some people interpret as a kind of code for building a new world order.
Right.
And the structure, the hierarchy, that's important too. They're the 3 degrees everyone knows about. But then there's the super secretive 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite. That's where the real power is supposed to be, where maybe global events get planned.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, or maybe controversial. The alleged Lucifer connection. Albert Pike, big name in Freemasonry. He supposedly wrote about Lucifer being the light bearer, even the god of the Masons. How do people interpret that? How does that connect to the name Illuminati, which also means enlightened ones?
Yeah, that's a huge point of debate and speculation, obviously. Some say Pike's writing is, allegorical,
Hmm.
philosophical. Lucifer is a symbol of enlightenment, maybe rebellion against dogma. Others take it much more literally. They see it as proof of a darker hidden agenda way up in the higher ranks. That ambiguity, it definitely fuels the mystery, fuels the conspiracy theories. And the historical links, they're hard to just dismiss. The French Revolution often gets pointed to as Masonic plotting against the king. And you've got the Italian P2 Lodge mixed up in Vatican scandals. It feeds that idea of widespread influence.
Huh.
Plus, the fact that some Middle Eastern countries actually ban Masonry and punish members severely, that shows the level of suspicion they can generate.
So the idea is their influence reaches into everything. Justice systems, finance, the media,
Yeah.
like all the main pillars of society. I mean, the UK even made judges say if they were Masons, and the Vatican's condemned them loads of times over the centuries, said their ideas just don't mix with Catholic beliefs.
But here's maybe one of the most fascinating alleged tactics mentioned in your sources.
Mhm.
Almost ingenious, maybe. It's the idea that the Freemasons themselves might have subtly encouraged some of these modern conspiracy theories.
Well,
By sort of cultivating this image of slightly eccentric guys doing weird old rituals, it might make any real investigation into their actual influence seem kind of crazy, easy to dismiss.
yeah.
A clever bit of misdirection.
Huh? Like a magician's trick, right.
Yeah.
Look over here at the funny handshake while the real action is happening somewhere else. Okay, let's switch gears. Skull and Bone. Even the name sounds secretive.
It definitely does. And they operate out of this windowless building at Yale called the Tomb. It's a brotherhood steeped in secrecy. The fact that you've got 3 U.S. presidents who are members,
Right.
including both candidates in the 2004 election, that's a pretty staggering concentration of power in one tiny group.
Yeah, I remember John Kerry being asked about it, and he basically said, not much, because it's a secret. Which just makes it sound more mysterious. Officially, they're the Brotherhood of Death, and they only pick 15 Yale juniors a year. 15. What do you even have to do to get picked for that?
Inside that tomb, the sources say they do these rituals worshiping something called Uloya, a deity, apparently just for them. Their documents are dated weirdly, too, going back to 322 BC. That's the year Athenian democracy collapsed, maybe symbolic. And the nicknames, they give members these permanent nicknames. George H.W. Bush was supposedly Magog. Henry Luce, the Time magazine guy, was Baal, like the demon. It all adds to this feeling of ancient, weird practices.
And then there's that really creepy alleged ritual crooking, ritual theft. The rumors are they have skulls of famous people. Martin Van Buren, Geronimo, Pancho Villa. Didn't a skull marked Skull and Bones turn up at an auction once, then just vanished? That definitely adds fuel to the fire.
And they have this private island retreat, apparently, St. Lawrence River, totally off limits. New members supposedly spend a week there, intense rituals, getting briefed. Financially, they've got this front group, the Russell Trust Association, manages millions, supposedly. Probably way more in reality.
So, yeah, no surprise there are theories linking them to the Illuminati, saying they control the CIA, all that. But just the fact that both presidential candidates in 2004 came from this one tiny secret club, it really makes you think about power concentration in America. For you listening, maybe the question is, how much can these small hidden groups shape things behind the scenes?
Exactly. And the descriptions you read. The windowless building, members in black suits, gold pins, meeting every Thursday night. It paints this picture of a super private club where secrets are kept, maybe secrets that even presidents from different parties share, secrets we never hear about.
Yeah.
Which brings us naturally to what many see as the big one, the foundation stone of so many modern theories, the Illuminati.
Ah, yes, the Illuminati. Just saying the name brings up images of shadowy figures pulling all the strings, right? The origin story itself, Bavaria, 1776. Intellectuals meeting in secret sounds like a movie plot.
It really does. And secrecy was everything for them, according to the sources. Secret handshakes, coded messages, blood oaths. And yeah, that supposed allegiance to Lucifer, the light bearer. That's often where the name Illuminati is said to come from. The founder, Adam Weishaupt, a former Jesuit, he's credited with identifying these 13 powerful bloodlines.
The Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Astors, those families always come up. The idea they're the real rulers, unelected.
And their supposed infiltration of Freemasonry is a huge part of the story.
Right, setting up secret lodges inside the normal ones, using double agents.
Exactly. The idea was ordinary Masons are just networking, doing their thing. But meanwhile, some are being watched, assessed,
Yeah.
maybe groomed for this inner circle.
So what was the advantage of doing it that way, hiding inside another group?
Well, it gave them a ready-made network, didn't it? And a kind of respectable cover made them less obvious. They could subtly recruit people who fit their goals without immediately showing their hand. And the supposed disbandment in 1784, the sources call that the perfect cover. The idea being they wanted to go underground. And then just a few years later, boom, the French Revolution. And soon after that, Washington, D.C. gets designed with all this alleged occult geometry, streets forming patterns, the White House on 13th Street. It makes you look back at history differently, doesn't it? Seeing these potential hidden hands at work.
And the dollar bill. It's impossible to ignore. The floating eye, that Latin phrase, Novus Ordo Seclorum, New Order of the Ages.
Yeah.
And the number 13 everywhere. 13 steps on the pyramid, 13 stars, 13 arrows, 13 olive leaves. Supposedly 13 represents rebellion, Lucifer himself. It's just, wow, it's a lot of symbols packed together.
It is potent imagery, no doubt, and it definitely feeds those interpretations. And by 1798, according to your sources, even talking about the Illuminati was supposedly dangerous. People who tried to expose them, like John Robeson or Augustin Barruel, they reportedly met suspicious ends or just got silenced.
And in the U.S., Skull and Bone at Yale is painted as their kind of academic base, right? With families like the Bushes, the Careys involved. The initiation rituals sound intense. Lying in coffins, confessing secrets. Sounds like perfect blackmail material. The idea being nobody comes out of that completely clean.
Your sources then take a pretty dramatic turn. They suggest JFK, President Kennedy, was a major threat to their power.
Yeah.
Because he supposedly opposed secret societies, the CIA, the Federal Reserve.
Right.
So the assassination in Dallas gets framed not as some random act, but as a deliberate professional hit to remove that threat.
Man, this deep dive into the Illuminati story, it feels like it goes everywhere. The music industry, Hollywood, company logos, all supposedly filled with their symbols, one-eye poses, triangles, pyramids, and the deaths of celebrities, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Prince, who supposedly spoke out against the industry before they died, hidden messages and music played backward, Albert Pike predicting 3 world wars. It's just this huge tangled web of claim.
It's a sprawling, yeah. Population control plans linked to the Georgia Guidestones, figures like Bill Gates talking about population that gets woven in. Elite bunkers, MK Ultra mind control continuing for adrenochrome harvesting, and the claim that the Federal Reserve isn't government-owned, but private, controlled by these Illuminati families.
And the internet, not liberating, but the ultimate spy tool. Facebook, Google, linked to intelligence agencies from the start. Even things like HARP technology presented as control mechanisms. And the symbols evolving, too. Obscure stuff becoming mainstream, like V for Vendetta masks, monarch butterflies, like they're slowly initiating us through pop culture.
That's the theory. And the alleged elimination of people who try to break free, like Prince or Michael Jackson again.
Yeah.
Then you get into Elon Musk's Neuralink, the transhumanist agenda. The ultimate goal supposedly being uploading consciousness, ruling forever. It all builds towards this picture of total control. Governments, churches, companies, everything, leading to a planet dollar collapse, digital currency, social credit, the mark of the beast.
It's a really dark vision, and the source wraps it up by saying these groups actually think they're saving humanity, ushering in a great reset. Centuries of planning, deep infiltration, almost absolute power. And that final thought, they're not coming, they've been here for centuries. The idea their symbols are already all around us, that's unsettling. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Let's talk about the Knights Templar. They seem a bit more grounded in actual history, at least at the start.
They definitely do. They started out relatively small, right? Protecting pilgrims going to the Holy Land. But the sources emphasize how quickly they transformed into this incredibly powerful kind of secret banking network across medieval Europe, strategically based on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And despite taking vows of poverty like monks, they ended up incredibly wealthy, which gave them huge power over kings, over money flowing across Europe. What kind of financial tricks might they have invented back then?
Their initiation ceremonies were supposedly top secret, like death penalty secret if anyone witnessed them. Recruits had to swear total obedience, total secrecy. Some stories mention weird rituals, too. Then came that dramatic end, King Philip V of France, those coordinated raids on Friday the 13th, 1307. That date's been unlucky ever since, hasn't it?
And under torture by the Inquisition, many Templars supposedly confessed to all sorts of things, worshipping an idol called Baphomet, denying Christ, spitting on crucifixes. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, his curse from the stake is legendary. And strangely enough, both the Pope and the King did die within a year.
Wow. So the order was officially shut down, but some think they just went underground in Portugal, became the Order of Christ, kept their knights, castles, secrets, maybe even helped fund Columbus. And today, the conspiracy theories link them to everything. The Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, even the Jesus bloodline surviving.
Yeah, and some theories say they're still operating secretly today, using their old financial know-how to influence global economies. Their symbols definitely persist. The Red Cross, those round churches, even the skull and crossbones. Maybe it hints at some big secret they died to protect. A secret some believe still shapes our world, subtly. Now let's switch to the Rosicrucians. They have a much more mystical kind of vibe, don't they?
Totally. They just appear in 17th century Germany with these strange manifestos, that rose cross symbol, which some say was hiding in plain sight in medieval buildings for ages. They claim to have ancient texts, secrets from people like Paracelsus, the Philosopher's Stone, even how to make a homunculus, a tiny artificial person. What did people even make of claims like that back then?
Their supposed founder, Christian Rosenkreuz, allegedly lived to 106 after getting forbidden knowledge in the Middle East. He said their goal was a universal reformation, using secret knowledge to master the physical and spiritual worlds. And then those weird posters suddenly appeared all over Paris in 1622, saying they were there, but invisible, caused quite a stir.
And around the early 1700s, some occult experts thought they hadn't vanished, but maybe moved east, or just went deeper underground, infiltrating power structures using new front groups. There's even a theory tracing them way back to a Gnostic sage in Alexandria, 1st century AD. Suggests a really long hidden history.
And you see these different Rosicrucian offshoots pop up, like the Brotherhood of Miriam in Naples, They reportedly practiced therapeutic magic. And the fact that the Soviets shut down major Rosicrucian orders in 1933, it makes you wonder what knowledge or influence they had that scared a regime like that.
People even speculate their influences in Dante's Divine Comedy. And then, the really uncomfortable bit, the alleged Nazi connection. A German Rosicrucian group, the Golden and Rosy Cross, supposedly influenced Hitler and Nazi occult beliefs significantly.
Right. So modern Rosicrucian groups claim to carry on this ancient wisdom. But the big questions are still there. Who's really running these groups now? And what's their ultimate goal?
Okay, let's shift from the mystical to something much more direct, much more brutal. The Black Hand.
Yeah, definitely a shift. This is a secret Serbian military society. Their motto, unification or death. Pretty chilling. And these weren't just random plotters. We're talking high-ranking military officers commanding death squads. Their actions absolutely changed 20th century history. I mean, storming the royal palace in Belgrade in 1903, brutally murdering the king and queen. That showed how ruthless they were.
And their leader, Apis, the Bull, Dragutin Dmitrievich. He supposedly survived tons of assassination attempts himself before they finally got him. Then, 1914, their efficiency led them to recruit and arm the assassins, including Gavrilo Princip, who killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, the spark that lit World War I. For you listening, it's a stark reminder of how a small secret group can have massive, devastating global impact.
They operated in isolated cells. Members usually only knew their direct contacts. Strict oaths take secrets to the grave. And when the Black Hand was officially dissolved in 1917, many members just moved into other groups. The White Hand, the Serbian Cultural Club, suggest their goals, their methods just continued.
That pattern disappearing, then reappearing in a new guise, fuels theories they never really went away. Many think modern Serbian ultranationalist groups are direct descendants. It's disturbing, right? How small, determined, secret groups can fundamentally change world events. Their initiation oath, taken by sunlight, adds this dramatic, symbolic layer to it all. Okay, moving on. The Priory of Sion. This one sounds straight out of Dan Brown.
Absolutely. The story goes they've operated in total secrecy for over 900 years. Their mission, guarding the bloodline of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene, and they're supposedly waiting for the right time to reveal proof that would basically upend traditional Christianity. And the list of alleged Grand Masters is just incredible. Da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo. It definitely adds to the romance and mystery.
So the core belief is the Holy Grail isn't a cup. It's Mary Magdalene's womb carrying Jesus's bloodline. And there's this mysterious dossier found in France's National Library, coded messages, genealogies linking them to the Templars, suggesting they've been infiltrating governments, churches for centuries. How would a belief like that shape what they do? They're a long game.
And the whole Rennes-le-Château mystery feeds into it. The local priest finding old parchments, coded messages, suddenly getting rich, then dying mysteriously. It just adds layers. Their symbol, the fleur-de-lis, mixed with occult stuff, some see that as representing their claim to a divine right to rule. And the rumors about mummified remains found near Rennes-le-Château, possibly Mary Magdalene herself, especially with alleged efforts to suppress those finds.
So what are they supposedly doing now? Infiltrating Freemasonry, using dead people's identities, harnessing ley line energy, witnesses vanish, evidence disappears. And the Vatican is often painted as being terrified of them, trying to discredit them, while maybe secretly looking for the bloodline themselves.
If the Priory's claims were ever proven true, yeah, it would potentially revolutionize religion, history as we know it.
Okay, let's take a trip to the Redwood Forests of California, Bohemian Grove.
Right. This is an annual super secretive retreat. Happens every July, deep in the Redwoods north of San Francisco. The guest list, America's elite, CEOs, ex-presidents, Supreme Court justices, all gathering for 2 weeks. And it kicks off with this bizarre ceremony, the cremation of care.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Guys in robes, a giant 40-foot stone owl, burning a human effigy, chanting in Latin.
Exactly. Richard Nixon apparently called it the most goddamn thing you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But he went all the time. Ronald Reagan supposedly cut key political deals there. George H.W. Bush was in their plays. The membership list is a who's who of American power, defense contractors, Pentagon people, big oil, and strictly forbidden. Women, personal phones, and definitely the press. Why so secret for what's supposedly just a fun retreat?
They have these camps inside, right? With weird names like Poison Oak and Bull's Balls Lunch.
And beyond the rituals, there are these lakeside talks, confidential speeches, where potentially huge policies, big decisions get discussed among the most powerful people in the country. Totally off the record. Richard Nixon's comeback after Watergate supposedly started at the Grove.
So yeah, they say it's just fun and networking, but when you get that mix of powerful people together doing weird paganish ceremonies all in total secrecy, it makes you ask serious questions. Are major deals being made there with zero public knowledge? Zero oversight.
Okay, from those high-level power meetings, let's pivot to something more overtly occult. The Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO.
Yeah, this is a really influential occult group. Their rituals focus on practicing magic, ceremonial acts, supposedly to channel supernatural forces, unlock hidden potential. Under Aleister Crowley, it really changed from its Masonic roots. It became guided by his Book of the Law. They have this strict hierarchy of degrees, levels of initiation, and there's a supreme secret, guarded very carefully, only revealed way up at the top. What could that secret be, you wonder? Their influence supposedly stretches into entertainment, too. Hollywood, music, their symbols hidden in mass media. And then there's the darker side. Figures like Bobby Beausoleil, linked to Charles Manson, suggests potential links between occult groups and crime.
And Jack Parsons is a fascinating case. Pioneer rocket scientist, but also a big leader in the OTO, doing ceremonial magic. His death was mysterious, too. A lab explosion. Right when he claimed he was close to opening interdimensional gateways through magic. The OTO has a religious arm, too, the Gnostic Catholic Church. Their rituals involve substances with, let's say, unusual ingredients, according to their own texts. Raises more questions.
And the accusations against them. Trafficking, covertly influencing world events. You keep seeing the same names, the same symbols popping up, linking back to them.
Definitely. Now, let's consider a society wrapped in ancient mystery, maybe the most powerful ever. The Nine Unknown.
Okay, this sounds like pure legend. History's most dangerous secret society. Started by Emperor Ashoka in India after a huge bloody war. 9 people, each guarding one book of forbidden knowledge. It sounds like fiction.
The legend is definitely powerful, and it persists. These 9 books supposedly hold secrets like a touch of death, anti-gravity, alchemy, even, incredibly, the formula for the cholera vaccine. Knowledge only released in dire crises, when humanity is ready, and for over 2,000 years, they've supposedly kept exactly 9 members. Someone dies. Instantly. Secretly replaced.
The story about Pope Sylvester II meeting them, getting advanced tech, then dying mysteriously after trying to show it off, that's chilling. And the 9th book, Psychological Warfare Techniques for Mass Manipulation.
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
A secret society operating way deeper than any government we see. Guardians of knowledge that could save us or destroy us. And the thought that the members might just be ordinary people living among us, that makes it even more unsettling.
Okay, let's come back to the modern world, to a group that's definitely real and definitely secretive, the Bilderberg Group.
Right. Since 1954, they hold these annual highly secret conferences. About 120 of the world's most powerful people, billionaires, heads of state, media bosses, all meeting behind closed doors. No public record. They use the Chatham House rule, so attendees can use the info they get, but can't say who said it. And the security is intense, which just makes people more suspicious.
Former attendees have admitted they've talked about creating a single global community, which of course fuels all the theories about global governance, and the timing of some big political appointments.
Yeah.
Like Herman Van Rompuy getting a top EU job right after going to Bilderberg, that definitely raises eyebrows.
Plus, you had Prince Bernhard involved in a big bribery scandal early on. And journalists trying to investigate the group reportedly get harassed. It all adds to the secrecy, the sense of maybe undue influence.
Bilderberg gets more mainstream attention now, right? People like Alex Jones have tried to infiltrate. But the basic question for you, listening, is still there. What exactly is being discussed? What decisions are maybe being made about our future in these totally private meetings? With no public input, no democratic accountability.
Exactly. Now, shifting back to darker history.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Thule Society.
Okay. This was a Munich-based occult group after World War I, known for being obsessed with Aryan racial theories, right? And trying to find Hyperborea, this mythical Aryan homeland with supposed ancient powers. The attack on their headquarters in 1919, members executed by communists, then their brutal retaliation, shows how violent things were then.
And their influence on the early Nazi Party is undeniable. Thule members helped start the newspaper that became the Nazis' main propaganda machine, and they were key in forming the German Workers' Party, which Hitler then took over and turned into the Nazi Party. Whether Hitler himself was actually in the Thule Society is debated by historians, but lots of top Nazis were definitely influenced by their racist, esoteric ideas.
And even after the Nazis banned other occult groups, Himmler's SS kept a lot of Thule ideas alive through the Anarbei, right? That occult research unit. Still looking for Hyperborea, trying to develop supernatural weapons.
Yeah. The Thule Society's dark influence on Nazi ideology is a chilling reminder of how weird esoteric beliefs can be twisted to justify absolute horror.
And speaking of the Anarbei,
Right, the Honorby, Hitler's ancestral heritage unit, run by the SS. They sent expeditions everywhere Tibet, Iceland, desperately looking for bogus, scientific, or supernatural proof of Aryan superiority. Wellsburg Castle was their HQ, filled with occult symbols, their fabricated findings.
and their research got really sinister. It directly fed into justifying the Holocaust, right? Like their studies of bog bodies to push racial purity myths, plus horrific experiments on concentration camp prisoners, all in the name of their twisted racial science. And they looted cultural treasures from all over Europe, like that VTOS altar from Poland, looking for Aryan artifacts, power objects.
What happened after the war is deeply disturbing, too. Many top Honorby people escaped justice, just went back to academic careers, quietly spreading their pseudoscience. Rumors persist their research continued secretly, influencing fringe archaeology, Nazi occult theories that still float around. And the fact they frantically destroyed so many documents as the Allies advanced, it suggests a lot of what they did is still hidden, maybe classified, or just gone forever.
Chilling. Okay, let's jump to 19th century Italy now. The Carbonari.
These were secret revolutionary cells operating all over Italy in the early to mid-1800s. Their name, charcoal burners, was code. They met secretly, often out in the countryside. They were strongly anti-Catholic, and there's this document, the Alta Vendita, allegedly outlining their long-term plan. Subtly infiltrate and take over the Catholic Church from the inside.
The Pope actually excommunicated them, right? Shows how much of a threat they were seen as.
Definitely. And behind the scenes, they had secret initiations, often with symbolic daggers, oaths. They were committed to armed revolution against the rulers. They were involved in lots of violent uprisings across Italy. And they had links to other secret societies, like the Freemasons. Influential members, too, like Lord Byron, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. Suggests a pretty wide network.
After their uprisings mostly failed, a lot of Carbonari members moved into other groups, like Mazzini's Young Italy movement, which helped unify Italy eventually. But some conspiracy theorists think the Carbonari just went deeper underground, kept pushing their anti-church agenda secretly. Their influence apparently spread to similar groups popped up in France, Portugal, Brazil.
And that Alta Vendita document. It's still used today as key evidence in theories about secret societies trying to undermine traditional power, especially the Catholic Church.
Okay, let's journey back to the medieval Middle East. The Order of Assassins.
Right, they flourished in Persia and Syria for almost 2 centuries. This Nizari Ismaili sect basically turned assassination into a specialized, almost ritualistic art form. They took out hundreds of high-profile targets, caliphs, viziers, crusader leaders. Psychological manipulation was key. Stories, like Marco Polo's, described recruits being drugged, shown paradise gardens, to make them totally loyal, fearless of death.
Their methods were brutal daggers, poison, arrows, but precise, designed to create maximum fear, exert political control through terror. The word assassin comes from them, right?
Believe so, yes.
Yes.
And how they were finally destroyed by the Mongols in the 13th century is a bit mysterious. Some theories say a remnant escaped, went underground. The claim they used the Hashishin idea that's debated, but adds to the mystique.
They had those amazing mountain fortresses like Alamet Castle, centers for indoctrination, planning.
And the really unsettling idea is that maybe they never truly vanished. Maybe they just evolved into a kind of secret society blueprint, turning ordinary people into fanatical killers for different causes.
Wow. Okay, from organized killers to a group with different ambitions, the Knights of the Golden Circle in America.
Yeah, this was a seriously ambitious secret society in the mid-19th century U.S. Their vision: a huge slave empire, southern U.S., Caribbean, Central America. And they had influence high up in the government. Their plans supposedly included overthrowing the government, even assassinating Lincoln.
When their big plans started falling apart, the more extreme faction became the Sons of Liberty during the Civil War, right? Basically a terrorist group.
Exactly. Sabotage, burning churches, trying to start uprisings behind Union lines. The feds cracked down hard. Arrests, deportations, executions for treason.
John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln's assassin, was likely a member. Some link Jesse James to them, too. And those persistent stories about buried gold. Millions stolen to fund a second Civil War.
Yeah. While they mostly vanished after the war, theories persist. They continued somehow, maybe morphed into other far-right secret societies. How close they actually came to achieving their crazy goals. That's a genuinely disturbing part of American history.
And speaking of groups blurring lines, the original Sons of Liberty from the American Revolution.
Right. Operating in the shadows of revolutionary America. This loose network, were they freedom fighters or terrorists? The line gets blurry. They were masters of intimidation propaganda, tarring and feathering British officials, loyalists. That was their signature move. Very public, very forceful. They used liberty trees as focal points, hanging nooses, effigies of enemies there.
Their violence escalated, didn't it? Like with Andrew Oliver, the stamp guy in Massachusetts. First burning his effigy, then torching his house.
Some historians think they deliberately whipped up a kind of addiction to rebellion among colonists, pushing things towards revolution with more and more radical acts. Their members included big names, Paul Revere, even Benedict Arnold before he switched sides.
Conspiracy theories often link them to the occult too, right? Through Freemason members, suggesting rituals in their secret meetings.
And they did symbolic stuff, like toasting the king while actively working to kick him out. After the war, the Sons of Liberty just kind of fade from the records, though some see parallels between how they operated and the early American spy networks that came later.
Interesting. Okay, let's turn to something really unusual now. The Sacred Band of Thieves from ancient Thebes.
Probably history's most unconventional elite army unit, yeah. 300 warriors, organized as 150 pairs of male lovers. The strategy was simple. Soldiers would fight harder, more bravely to protect their partner. And it worked. They were incredibly effective. They famously broke Sparta's long military dominance, got this reputation for being invincible.
Until that final battle, Chaeronea, 338 BCE. All 300 fought to the death against Philip of Macedon's forces rather than surrender. Philip himself supposedly wept when he saw their bodies, impressed by their courage.
There's evidence linking them to ancient Greek mystery cults, too. Their specific spiritual practices were likely kept secret.
Their tomb, marked by that huge stone lion. It got smashed at some point. Nobody knows why.
And when archaeologists dug up the burial site in the 1800s, they only found remains of 254 bodies. What happened to the other 46?
Fringe theories suggest they guarded mystical knowledge or practiced lost forms of tantric combat.
It's strange how well documented their military exploits are, but details about their personal lives, their beliefs, almost totally erased from history.
Fascinating. Okay, let's jump way forward to South Africa during World War II, the Usua Brandwag.
This was a secret network of Afrikaner nationalists, Nazi sympathizers, operating inside South Africa during the war. They actively worked against the Allies, trying to set up a pro-Nazi regime. They infiltrated everywhere, police, military, mining. Their militant wing, the Stormjagers, carried out sabotage, had this really fanatical loyalty oath. They even worked with German intelligence, planned a coup in 1940.
The coup failed, and many members were jailed during the war. But then what happened after the war is just incredible.
Astonishingly, former Usua Brandwag members somehow ended up becoming the leaders of South Africa's National Party, the same party that then designed and implemented apartheid.
That transition from a defeated extremist underground group to the architects of a brutal political system, it's deeply disturbing. It really makes you wonder how other seemingly beaten extremist groups might just reemerge later in different clothes.
It absolutely does. It raises huge questions about how extremist ideas survive, how marginalized groups can eventually grab power. You can see apartheid, partly anyway, as applying Nazi-inspired race theories in a new place. And it makes you think, how might defeated extremists today rebrand themselves to gain mainstream acceptance? Political power.
Heavy stuff. Okay, let's turn to the Molly Maguires in Pennsylvania.
This was a secret Irish mining society, active in the Pennsylvania coal region, 1860s, 1870s. They used violence, murders, assassinations, bombings to fight against the terrible conditions and exploitation faced by Irish immigrant miners. Operated secretly, often disguised themselves. Their warning sign to mine bosses. A rough drawing of a coffin.
The authorities and mine owners blamed them for lots of unsolved murders. Sabotage.
They cleverly used the ancient Order of Hibernians, an Irish fraternal group, as a kind of front, maybe for recruiting.
And there are still dark questions about James McParland, the Pinkerton detective who infiltrated them. Did he maybe encourage violence to justify arrests, act as an agent provocateur?
The response from the mine owners and their private police was brutal too. Vigilante justice, massacres of strikers, and that legend of the bloody handprint left by a condemned Molly on his jail cell wall. It's a powerful symbol of defiance.
20 alleged members were eventually hanged. Still controversial. Some got pardons years later, suggesting the trials were biased by the powerful coal barons.
Some historians now argue the Molly Maguires weren't even a real organized group, just a label the companies used to crush labor activism. Others insist they were real, but just faded away or went deeper underground. The truth is still debated.
Okay, let's dive into a real historical puzzle now. A group that came from the sea peoples.
Right, appearing around 1200 BCE. These mysterious groups of warriors and the people with them are linked to the massive collapse of Bronze Age civilizations across the Mediterranean. They attacked major empires, like Egypt. Their military skill on land and sea seemed way beyond their contemporaries. History books often just call them raiders, but the evidence suggests something more organized, maybe more sinister.
They fought with incredible precision. Some finds hint they had advanced naval tech, maybe even early iron weapons, unusual for the time. And their sudden mastery of seafaring suggests maybe forgotten navigation knowledge, advanced star charts.
Egyptian records list different groups among them, but they often acted together, hints at some kind of alliance or central command. And interestingly, even after Egypt fought off their main invasions, Pharaoh Ramesses III hired some of them, the Shardana, as his personal bodyguards.
Recent DNA evidence linked the Philistines, one of the Sea Peoples groups, to European ancestry.
And here's the really weird part. After causing this massive collapse in many areas, in other places they seem to have just blended in with the locals.
The Bronze Age collapse wasn't random. It looks targeted, systematic, dismantling power structures. But some societies were spared. Why?
Fringe theories suggest maybe there were pawns in some bigger cosmic reset, or carriers of specific ancient knowledge, their real origins, why they appeared and disappeared. It feels deliberately obscured by time.
A true mystery. Okay, let's move to a much clearer historical secret network. The Culper Ring.
George Washington Spy Network during the Revolutionary War. Highly effective, surprisingly sophisticated, operating behind enemy lines in British-occupied New York. They used complex code names, numbers, aliases. Washington himself was 7-Eleven. And the identity of Agent 355, a female spy who might have exposed Benedict Arnold, that's still one of early American spying's biggest unsolved mysteries.
They used invisible ink, right? Sympathetic stain. Groundbreaking stuff for the time.
Absolutely. And James Rivington, the guy who ran a Loyalist coffee house and newspaper in New York, perfect cover for gathering intel. Robert Townsend, Culper Jr., his key role wasn't even figured out until the 1920s. Shows how good their security was.
They really pioneered modern spy techniques, didn't they? Dead drops, coded messages, counter-surveillance.
Yeah, Anna Strong's clothesline signals ranging laundry to signal meeting times. Genius. Rivington embedding coded messages in his newspaper.
Yeah.
Brilliant tradecraft.
And they used enslaved people like Ko to carry messages, often without them knowing the full risk. Adds a complex moral layer.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift focus to something more spiritual, symbolic. The Neo-Guardian deities in Japan.
Right, those huge, fierce statues you see at the gates of Buddhist temples, often 8 feet tall, super intimidating.
Exactly. They're meant to scare off evil spirits, protect the temple, and they represent duality. One usually has an open mouth, the sound ah at the beginning. The other, closed mouth un, the end. Alpha and omega, creation and destruction.
And in the 1600s, monks developed this meditation, Nyozen, where they'd actually mimic the Neo stances, their fierce faces trying to absorb their power.
Yeah. And for centuries, people working at temples, visitors, they've reported weird stuff near the statues. Vibrations, strange sounds, even seeing the stone muscles seem to twitch. Workers installing new Neo statues sometimes report feeling watched, or even pushed. Unsettling.
Similar guardian figures pop up in Chinese Taoism too, right? Suggests a shared cultural root.
Possibly. Some esoteric scholars think the Neo represents something older than organized religion. A kind of primordial force, maybe? A fundamental energy interpreted differently across Asia over time.
Interesting. Okay, now for a fascinating story of deception. The Order of the Palladium and the Taxil hoax.
Right, this was a huge, elaborate hoax pulled off by Leo Taxil, a French writer and ex-Freemason in the late 19th century. His goal? To trick and embarrass the Catholic Church. He basically invented a secret, satanic inner circle within Freemasonry, made up stories of devil worship, orgies, demon veneration.
He even created a fake Grand Priestess, Diana Vaughan, supposedly descended from a demon, and implicated real Masons like Albert Pike.
Amazingly, the Catholic Church totally fell for it. Top bishops publicly backed his claims. Pope Leo III even gave him an audience. Taxil just kept adding wilder details, invented power struggles between different satanic factions inside Masonry. Then, in 1897, he held a press conference and confessed it was all a hoax. designed to show how gullible and anti-Masonic the church was. Huge public humiliation for them.
But the hoax had a lasting effect, didn't it? It kind of cemented the modern idea of Satanism as this organized thing, even though Taxil made it up.
Pretty much. And even after he confessed, some fundamentalist groups, conspiracy theorists, still quote his fake stories as proof of a satanic Masonic plot.
And people actually tried to join this fake Order of the Palladium while the hoax was going on? That's wild.
It is. Okay, let's move to 13th century Milan, the Guglielmites.
These were followers of Guglielma of Bohemia, right? A mystic woman who died in Milan in 1281. Her followers came to believe she was the Holy Spirit incarnate.
Yeah, sent to start a new age. Their beliefs were pretty radical for the time. Female religious authority, apocalyptic prophecies. One of her followers, Mefreda de Piranomo, was even elected as a female pope within the group.
And it wasn't just a grassroots thing. They had connections to the ruling Visconti family in Milan. Suggests maybe political protection.
Possibly. After Guglielma died, a big cult grew around her tomb. Miracles were claimed. But eventually the Inquisition stepped in, saw it as heresy. Key members were arrested, tried, executed. Guglielma's body was dug up and burned.
But somehow respect for her survived. A Franciscan friar later wrote a biography subtly, including her story. Records kept by the Visconti family.
Exactly. Suggests maybe some continued, quiet veneration. And recent research links imagery associated with Guglielma to the Pope's card in the Visconti Sforza tarot deck. Hints at hidden esoteric symbolism.
Sounds like a medieval conspiracy. Powerful families may be protecting a heresy they found important. Now let's look at a society built on massive imperial dreams. The Society of the Elect.
This was conceived by Cecil Rhodes, the British imperialist, late 19th century. His ambition: unite all English-speaking nations under British rule, create a global British superpower. After he died, his close allies formed this secret-ish organization to carry out his vision. The more public roundtable movement was like its visible arm.
And they recruited heavily from elite places like Oxford, Cambridge, using the Rhodes Scholarship to groom future leaders sympathetic to their imperial goals.
That's the claim. Their influence supposedly reached deep into governments in Britain and the colonies. Some even suggest they helped orchestrate World War I to further their unification aims. Their network allegedly spread through intelligence agencies, banks, Commonwealth governments. They saw themselves as the elect, chosen to reshape the world in their Anglo-Saxon image.
Carroll Quigley, the historian who got access to their archives for a while, he documented their activities, their networks, right, showed their influence was real.
He did. And many researchers think this core group still operates today, maybe under new names, through different organizations, but with the same basic goal: Anglo-American global leadership, influencing major world institutions.
The amount of documentation, Rhodes' will, the roundtable history, Quigley's work makes this one seem pretty well supported, at least historically. But what they're doing now, that's the mystery.
Precisely. Now let's turn to a tragic modern example: Heaven's Gate.
Right. The group that committed mass suicide in 1997, 39 members in California, believing they were leaving their bodies to join a spaceship behind the Hale-Bopp comet.
Yeah, heading for a cosmic journey to the next level. Some really disturbing aspects to voluntary castration for male members, buying alien abduction insurance. Led by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, Dew and Ty, claimed they were the two witnesses from Revelation, walk-ins from another dimension.
The timing was all tied to that comet, wasn't it? Believing another ship was hiding behind it, fueled by stuff like Art Bell's radio show.
And there were weird financial bits, too. They had a successful web design company, Higher Source. It kept running for a while, even after they died.
The way they died. So ritualistic. Identical Nike shoes, purple shrouds, the phenobarbital cocktail, all in their bunk beds.
Eerie similarities to earlier mass suicides linked to the Solar Temple cult, too. And tragically, some former members killed themselves later on.
And the government, like the ATF, had apparently been watching them before the suicides.
Yeah. The level of psychological control Applewhite had, the complexity of their beliefs, it's still deeply unsettling, still debated.
Okay, let's hop over to Ireland now. The legends around the Hellfire Club.
Right. This abandoned hunting lodge on Montpelier Hill near Dublin. The Irish Hellfire Club was this secret, notorious group of mostly rich young guys in the 18th century. Legend says the devil himself ripped the roof off during their first meeting. Sets the tone right. Loads of dark stories grew up around it. Desecrating religious symbols, roasting a dead priest, dealing with a mad farmer who stumbled on them.
The members were Ireland's elite. Judges, politicians, military officers, meeting way out there in secret.
Locals reported strange lights from the lodge at night, screams, sounds of wild parties. One famous story: A member spills wine on a mysterious guest, sees a cloven hoof. They were gambling with the devil.
They supposedly disbanded after summoning something they couldn't handle.
And the building itself kept getting damaged by fire, even though it was already ruined.
Even today, hikers report seeing dark figures up there, feeling this overwhelming dread near the ruins.
Definitely has that classic Gothic horror feel.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to 9th century Iraq. Actually, 10th, sources vary. The Brethren of Purity.
Right. This was a super influential, super secret society of intellectuals in Basra.
They used a complex mathematical code, hid their philosophy and science in this big encyclopedia, the Epistles of the Brethren of Purity. We still don't know who they were. They called themselves sleepers in the cave, like from the Quran.
They were organized, right? Like 4 ranks, military style, kept secret to protect their God-given gifts of knowledge.
Yeah, and they had a precise ritual schedule, monthly meetings. Some think they were linked to Sufism or Ismaili Shia Islam. One historian, Al-Tawidi, claimed he knew who they were, but his account just vanished. Adds to the mystery.
Their encyclopedia aimed to create perfect men, mixing Eastern mysticism, Greek science, Christian morality. Some think it contains coded instructions for higher consciousness.
That's the theory. Their real agenda, their full impact. It's locked away in their writings.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about America's first secret society chartered by Congress, the Knights of Pythias.
Founded 1864, Washington, D.C., started out looking like a standard fraternal order, right? Friendship, charity, benevolence, FCB.
Exactly. But beneath that, they had deeper secret practices. Their Latin motto hints at more, a faithful teacher of good. Their initiation rituals, though meant to teach morals, often focused on death, sacrifice. New members traditionally got swords.
And they had that paramilitary wing, the uniform rank. Armed parades in medieval costumes adds a theatrical, slightly odd element.
Yeah, their structure was medieval themed too. Hierarchy, meeting places called castles. They attracted some powerful politicians over the years. Teddy Roosevelt, Harding, McKinley were members.
But they also enforced racial segregation historically.
They still exist today. Over 50,000 members. Motto: true friends are a refuge.
So that mix, fraternal charity, military structure, political links, secret rituals, it hints at maybe deeper goals than just brotherhood.
Could be. Now, the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor.
Another secretive occult group, claimed roots back to 1870 or 1884, sources differ. Their goal was controlling occult knowledge, keeping it from the public.
That was the idea. Max Theon was the public face, but Peter Davidson might have been the real power behind it. Theories often link them to sex magic, maybe through Pascal Beverly Randolph, an early American occultist.
And they influenced the OTO, right?
Believe so. They also had this rivalry with Helena Blavatsky and her Theosophical Society. Big occult feud back then.
Their secretary, Thomas Burgoyne, got exposed for fraud. That hurt their reputation.
Yeah, and the Theosophists denounced them strongly. Although, weirdly, Blavatsky herself mentioned a Brotherhood of Luxor in her writings. Same one. Unclear.
They claim their methods gave initiates actual supernatural powers.
That was the claim. And the fact that some of their critics met bad ends or got discredited fuels speculation about their influence.
Okay, let's shift to a much more recent, much more dangerous group, Iwam Shinrikyo.
Right. Awum's transformation was terrifyingly fast. From a kind of obscure yoga group to a full-blown, dangerous doomsday cult under Shoko Asahara, just 8 years. Asahara manipulated followers into believing an apocalypse was coming, and they had to trigger it through mass murder. They recruited smart people from top universities, used intense mind control electrode caps, LSD, even torture.
Their preparations were chilling, making sarin nerve gas, trying to get weapons like AK-47s, even a helicopter.
Yeah, and people who tried to leave faced deadly consequences. Asahara predicted World War III starting in 1997. Only Yale members would survive.
And their 1995 sarin attack on the Tokyo subway, horrific, trying to kickstart that apocalypse.
Asahara denied it all until the end. He was executed in 2018.
But their successor group, ALEFH, still exists, still reveres Asahara, still watched by authorities.
Very much so. Concerns about revenge attacks, future violence, they haven't gone away. How many original members are still involved? Nobody knows for sure.
Scary stuff. Okay, let's turn to a group with ancient astronomical knowledge, the Dogon people of Mali.
Yeah, this relatively isolated tribe in West Africa. They have this stunningly accurate knowledge of the Sirius star system, seemingly impossible for their technological level at the time. They describe Sirius B, the dwarf star, invisible to the naked eye decades before Western astronomers confirmed it in the 1800s.
And even more amazing, they knew about a third star, Sirius C, which wasn't even theorized until the late 20th century and still isn't definitively proven.
Plus, detailed charts of the 50-year orbits of Sirius A and B.
So how? Mainstream science suggests maybe contact with Western astronomers we don't know about?
That's one explanation. But the Dogon cosmology itself, about the Nommo, these amphibious beings from Sirius, who brought knowledge to Earth that predates Western discoveries. They have secret societies, a sacred language, Sigiso, forbidden to women and the uninitiated, all to guard this ancient wisdom about Earth's creation, alien origins.
Their big SIU ceremony only every 60 years is super secret, full of cosmic symbolism.
Their creation myths talk about the Nommo, fish-like beings dividing humanity, unique circumcision rituals tied to their cosmology, tribal priests, often isolated, guard this serpent wisdom.
So for you, the listener, the puzzle is, did they get this knowledge terrestrially? Or is there a more extraordinary explanation?
It's a really fascinating case. It challenges how we think knowledge spreads, how ancient cultures might gain scientific insights. The accuracy about Sirius is just compellingly strange. Okay, let's look at a radical black nationalist movement now.
Yeah.
The Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation.
Right. The Nation of Islam started in the U.S. in the 1930s. Core idea. Black people are the original people, inherently divine. The 5% Nation, or Nation of Gods and Earths, is an offshoot from 1964. Takes it further. Black men are gods, black women are Earths.
Their cosmology involves the original black man ruling Earth, then a scientist named Yaqub, creating white people as a kind of devilish offshoot. The unsolved, suspicious assassination of Elijah Muhammad, called Allah, in 1969, is a big deal in their history.
And their influence on hip-hop culture is huge, right? Wu-Tang Clan, Nas, Jay-Z, Busta Rhymes, lots of artists referencing their ideas.
Definitely. And a lot of street slang dropping science, word is bond, comes from the 5%ers.
Yeah.
Because of their separatist views, rhetoric, they've sometimes been labeled security threats, had literature banned in prisons.
Their core philosophy, 85% of people are ignorant, 10% are the elite who keep them that way, and only 5% are the enlightened ones who know the truth.
That's the 5% view. And a hierarchical gender structure. Men as gods, women as earths, supporting them. Interestingly, they often reject being called a religion. Say it's about inherent divinity, not faith.
A complex movement, often controversial, but undeniably impactful on American culture.
Okay, let's go back to medieval Germany. The Vehmic courts.
Yeah, these were shadow justice systems, mostly in Westphalia, late Middle Ages. Hooded judges, the Wissen, or knowing ones, meeting secretly in forests, caves, passing judgment, carrying out sentences. Their power reached across the Holy Roman Empire. Secret handshakes, passwords to keep things hidden.
Summonses nailed to trees or doors. Ordinary citizens forced to enforce their verdicts. Condemned people marked with SSG.
Supposedly answered only to the emperor, but often acted with little oversight, gained this reputation for inescapable justice. People targeted by them sometimes killed themselves rather than face judgment.
And their memory lingered in Germany, got picked up by right-wing groups later. Even the Nazis linked them to vigilante theme murders. Yeah. Rumors, probably unfounded, of descendant groups still operating secretly. Old families keeping traditions.
The official view is they were just criminal vigilantes. But maybe that's a convenient cover for something more persistent.
Possibly. Now let's go to Eastern China, 1928, the Red Spear Society.
This was a massive peasant revolt, right? Against warlords, chaos, taxes.
Exactly. And it fused traditional folk religion, martial arts, with revolutionary anger. Fighters used spears with red tassels, believed it made them immune to bullets. Buddhist monks often led battles, chanting protections using mystical symbols. Some accounts even mention human sacrifice for power, though maybe exaggerated.
And they actually set up a kind of proto-state in Shandong province in 1929. Shows how powerful they got fast.
What's really odd is how many survivors were apparently absorbed into the nationalist government forces after they were suppressed. Suggests maybe some respect or fear of their mystical side.
There are similarities to the earlier Boxer Rebellion too, right? Same kind of magic, rituals against modern weapons.
Points to a long tradition of mystical resistance in China. Some think these groups persist in overseas Chinese communities.
The fact their battle magic apparently scared heavily armed warlords is pretty amazing.
Some stories even say membership was compulsory in areas, maybe preparing for some prophesied cosmic battle.
It's a great example of how deep cultural beliefs can fuel social and political movements, right? Giving people a unique way to resist.
Absolutely. That blend of spirit, fighting skill, and revolution made them formidable. Okay, now for a really mysterious one. mixing Tibetan and Japanese occultism, the Green Dragon Society.
Described as super enigmatic, deeply secret, underground, rituals so secret, witnesses rarely survive.
That's the legend. They're even blamed for collapsing empires like Russia through controlling Rasputin, though hard evidence is basically non-existent. Any archives or records seem to have vanished completely.
But there are those classified reports. Nazis finding robed Tibetan monks in Berlin tunnels during WWII, hinting at a link.
It's claimed. Also claim they instructed Karl Haushofer, Hitler's geopolitical mentor, influencing Nazi expansion plans, maybe using world energy lines, Tibet as a strategic HQ.
And the members supposedly have superpowers, astral projection, mind control, seeing the future.
Allegedly. And people who reveal too much tend to die suspiciously.
Fringe theories say they still infiltrate governments, use mystical knowledge to steer world events, ultimate goal, spiritual domination.
The truth, supposedly, is locked away in Tibetan monasteries, guarded by cursed vows of silence.
Wow. Sounds incredibly powerful, incredibly elusive. Okay, let's turn to Japan now, the Black Ocean Society, or Ginyosha.
Started in Japan's late samurai era, Meiji Restoration. Began as nationalists wanting more Japanese power in Asia, but quickly became this sophisticated, ruthless spy network. Used brothels in China, Southeast Asia as fronts for intel gathering, blackmail, had a training academy in Sapporo for teaching espionage.
They were heavily involved in assassinating Queen Min of Korea in 1895. A brutal act to weaken resistance to Japan.
Yep.
Heavily implicated, yes. Over time, they became a real power center in Japanese politics. Members rose high, even became WWI cabinet ministers. Their rise involved terror, assassination, close ties to organized crime, especially the Yakuza, basically a political terrorist group.
They manipulated foreign policy, too, like backing Korean peasant uprisings to help Japan's expansion.
Very calculated moves. Officially disbanded after WWI by the Allies, but many think their ideology, their methods just went underground. Left a dark legacy in Japanese politics.
It shows how patriotism can curdle into violence and manipulation, doesn't it? Now, let's talk about a shadow government closer to home in Italy. The P2 Lodge.
Propaganda do P2, a super secret, super powerful Masonic lodge, acted like a shadow government in Italy, late 20th century. Influence reached the top, banking, intelligence, even the Vatican, eventually kicked out by legitimate Italian Freemasonry for corruption, having a secret subversive agenda.
They're suspected of manipulating Italy's violent years of lead, bombings, assassinations.
Strongly suspected. Their secret membership list was incredible. Military, top brass, spies, media moguls, industrialists, top politicians, including Silvio Berlusconi before he became prime minister.
Linked to huge scandals, too. The Banco Ambrosiano collapse, the weird death of its boss, Roberto Calvi, with Masonic symbols involved.
Yes. And even theories linking P2 to the sudden death of Pope John Paul I after just 33 days, amid talk of Vatican bank reform.
And they had a written plan, right, the plan for democratic rebirth, to basically merge their shadow network with the official government.
Reveal the scale of their ambition. Many believe P2 never really went away, just operates differently now. Maybe a blueprint for modern shadow groups trying to pull strings.
Sounds like a real-life deep state. Okay, let's go way back to ancient China, the White Lotus Society.
Emerged in ancient China. More than just meditation groups. Secret gatherings, men and women mixing, which was unusual. Officially devoted to Buddha Maitreya. But their real power source was the birthless old mother, promising salvation. Key belief. Their rituals made them immune to weapons. Led to lots of peasant rebellions over centuries. Used secret signals like incense to coordinate.
They supposedly organized simultaneous nationwide revolts. Shows amazing underground organization.
Some historians think they even played a role in toppling the Ming dynasty, maybe by strategically backing off at a key moment.
Outlawed by the next dynasty, the king, forced deeper underground, often got tangled up with corrupt local officials.
Despite crackdowns, they kept rebelling. Even supposedly collaborated with the Japanese in WWII.
Is it debated whether they were one single conspiracy or just a label the government stuck on any threatening rebel group?
Big debate. Some think they evolved into, or heavily influenced, modern Chinese triads.
Another example of a popular religious movement becoming a force for resistance against empires for centuries. Now let's talk about Achilles' warriors, the Myrmidons.
Right, the fierce, loyal soldiers following Achilles in the Trojan War myth. But their legacy goes beyond that. Medieval Byzantine writers linked the name Myrmidons to groups like the Bulgarians. Others linked it to Rus Vikings. Suggests a lasting association with elite warriors. The myth says Zeus turned ants into soldiers for Achilles. But maybe the darker truth is they were just highly skilled, ruthless mercenaries.
And the idea of the Myrmidon unwavering obedience, amazing fighters, it keeps echoing through history.
Definitely. Modern elite military units, warships in the Royal Navy, U.S. Navy, sometimes get compared to them or even named after them.
And Henry Fielding's novel, Tom Jones, from 1749, has a coded warning about Myrmidons, hinting at this enduring symbol of hidden power, blind loyalty.
Yeah. Byzantine fear of a brutal fighting force they call Bulgars might also be a coded reference.
So the Myrmidon becomes this archetype, those who follow orders without question, no matter what.
Exactly, a persistent idea. Now let's look at a German secret society from the 1730s, Oculus.
Oculus, secretive German group, 1730s, hid their real activities behind this elaborate cipher system and lots of eye symbolism.
Yeah, Oculus means eye. They infiltrated Masonic lodges, documented secret rituals from the highest degrees, led by Count Friedrich von Hunt, a big figure in German Freemasonry. Some even speculate Franklin, Voltaire, maybe Washington were linked to Oculus. No solid proof, though.
The eye was a metaphor for hidden knowledge, enlightenment.
That seems to be the idea. Their initiations were bizarre mock eye surgery, offering an eyebrow hair. Masters wore blue eye amulets, had surgical tools for ceremonies.
And through infiltrating masonry, they documented secrets about skulls, coffins, Hiram Abiff.
That's what the sources claim. Some think the whole eye ophthalmology theme was just a cover. Oculist, maybe code for Maurer, German for Mason.
They vanished after von Hunt died, leaving a trunk of secrets passed down with strict rules about opening it.
That's the story. Highlights that interplay between secret societies and efforts to uncover their secrets. The layers of code, symbolism.
Okay, let's discuss a very different kind of secret gathering. The Hashish Eaters Club in 19th century Paris.
Right. This clandestine group of famous French writers, artists in the 1840s, met at the Hotel Pimadan, centered around eating dawamesque, this potent hashish paste. Big names involved. Victor Hugo, Alexandre Dumas, Charles Baudelaire.
Publicly, they framed it as scientific artistic research, exploring altered states for creativity.
That was the line. But there are these darker potential links. To a nearby mental asylum where cannabis was grown, raises questions about early mind control experiments.
And the timing. Right after Napoleon's Egypt campaign, where soldiers might have first encountered hashish, could it have been for intelligence reasons, studying its effects?
Speculation, but intriguing. Invitations were coded.
Delacroix, the painter, did weird dreamlike art then. Maybe influenced by hashish from the club?
And Baudelaire's book, Artificial Paradises, about drugs. Some see it as a coded manual for the club's practices. The secret recipe for dawamesque was guarded.
They just disbanded mysteriously around 1849.
And the hotel itself, Hotel Pimadan, had a dark history. Duke of Lausanne, scandals.
And a detailed history of the club only came out in 2024. Suggests maybe 175 years of secrecy.
It's a fascinating look at art, altered states, and maybe hidden agendas in bohemian circles. The long silence definitely adds to the mystery. Now, let's go to the Pacific. The Arioi of Tahiti.
A secretive cult with really shocking practices. Systematic infanticide or abortion.
Yes, linked to their devotion to Oro, the war god. Believed necessary to maintain bloodline purity. Commitment to their spiritual and artistic roles. They were a separate elite in Tahitian society. Privileged lifestyle, restricted membership, initiations involving divine possession.
They had amazing social freedom, though. Could openly criticize chiefs without punishment.
The religious performances, dancing, singing, were like a public cover for their private esoteric practices.
And they adapted when Christianity arrived. Became movements like the Mamaya, mixing Christian elements like Mary visions with traditional Oro possession.
Yeah, and similar secret societies existed elsewhere in the Pacific Kioi, in Hawaii, Halahula, and Tonga. Suggests maybe a wider network preserving ancient knowledge across the ocean.
A stark reminder of how different cultural practices can be, and how secrecy maintains power and unique social rules. Okay, let's turn to something contemporary and deeply creepy. The Dark Watchers.
Right, this modern phenomenon. People report feeling intensely watched, surveilled, receiving anonymous letters with impossibly personal details, suggests long-term observation by some sophisticated network. Sleeper agents.
Letters arrive randomly. Victims feel constantly observed even at home. See shadow figures, find small things moved around.
Exactly. And some who try to resist or investigate, they just gradually disappear. Online activity stops, friends notice weird behavior, then they vanish. Homes left with belongings untouched.
Coded symbols on obscure websites linked to them, researchers studying them become targets themselves.
And the terrifying part, no obvious motive, no ransom, no demands, just relentless psychological torture.
Are they human? Something else. Nobody knows.
Truly unsettling. Taps into fears about privacy, unseen control. The lack of purpose makes it even worse. Now, let's go back to the medieval underworld, the Garduña.
A supposed secret society of criminals in medieval Spain, operating out of prisons, their existence even debated by historians.
Adds to the mystique, rumored to pull strings behind the Spanish Inquisition influencing executions. Supposedly had a strict code, elaborate rituals, a system for deciding who lived or died, origins in prisoner vengeance.
And some theories link them to founding the big Italian mobs. Mafia, Camorra, and 'Ndrangheta suggests the link between Spanish prison culture and Italian organized crime.
That's the theory. Prison initiations with blood oaths, dangerous tasks to prove loyalty, rumors of piracy connections, a vast criminal network.
Their real influence on history, mostly speculation, folklore, though some Calabrian folk songs might hold traces.
A glimpse into potential power structures within prisons, and the long-reach crime networks can have. Okay, now for a meta idea. The most profound conspiracy.
The idea that secret societies themselves might be the conspiracy. Manufactured threats, social control, distracting us from real power.
Exactly. The argument is, true global elites meet openly economic forums, private islands. Their power is visible if you look, but we're distracted by shadowy cabals. The evidence for these deep conspiracies often fits a pattern. Blurry photos, unverified documents, whistleblowers who vanish. It all feeds the narrative itself. And these manufactured threats often tap into the fears of their time Illuminati and the Enlightenment Bohemian Grove now.
So are they deliberately crafted villains to keep us looking the wrong way? Are the really powerful watching us chase shadows amused?
Could intelligence agencies even create or boost conspiracy theories to sow confusion?
Maybe the ultimate trick is convincing us there is no society, that the whole idea of secret influence is just an illusion.
It's provocative, challenges us to think about power, influence, where we focus our attention. Are we missing the obvious by looking for the hidden? Worth considering. Finally, the ultimate unification theory. All are the same.
This proposes that all these secret societies are just branches of one ancient cult, serving one entity.
Yeah, devoted to some single powerful being, often described as prehuman, the architect of reality.
Proponents point to shared symbols everywhere, all seeing eye, owl, phoenix, all representing this one deity.
Suggesting even top initiates in different groups serve the same hidden masters, finding matching rituals, core beliefs, in groups from Freemasons to the Vatican Underground to Bohemian Grove.
And this entity demands tribute. Human sacrifice historically, maybe societal control now, mass casualty events aligning with ritual dates.
It's often described as beyond good and evil, seeing humans as tools, offering knowledge, power, for service.
The theory also mentions a pattern. Advanced civilizations collapsing after finding certain math formulas. Modern societies unknowingly holding pieces of these equations. And the ultimate goal isn't just earthly power, but completing some mathematical sequence. To manifest this entity fully into our dimension. A result even top initiates secretly fear.
Wow, okay. Well, that was a seriously deep dive into a huge, shadowy world based on the sources you provided. I really hope we pulled out some surprising stuff, created some aha moments for you.
Yeah, what's really striking looking across all these groups is how certain themes, certain symbols just keep repeating across centuries in supposedly unconnected societies that focus on secrecy, the initiation rituals, the idea of having hidden knowledge about reality or power. Those are definitely recurring threads.
Absolutely. But as we've seen, you really have to approach this stuff with critical thinking, right? Sorting fact from speculation, from outright invention. It's tough in these areas.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to chew on. Given these patterns, these enduring mysteries, what if the most effective, the most influential secret society isn't some group with secret handshakes hiding in the shadows? What if it's something much more pervasive, something woven into our daily lives, operating almost in plain sight?
Or maybe by focusing so much on the shadows, on these alleged hidden plots, are we maybe overlooking the powerful forces that operate totally openly, shaping our world in huge ways right in front of us? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material.